Well, hello, everyone. Here we are again with another episode of HR Office Hours. I'm Sandy Zannino, and I'm here with my friend, Brad deBeaubien. Brad, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Sandy. It's good to see you.
It's always good to see you. I love our conversations.
Me
And
too.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. They really are like a highlight for me because I learned so much from you.
Vice
Um,
versa.
well, thank you. And so today we are going to talk about hostile work environment. What is hostile work environment? What isn't hostile work environment, right? So what is a good definition for people who are watching us, especially employers? What is a good definition of hostile work environment?
So I think probably a succinct statement is it's unwelcome harassment, generally that's based on a person's membership in a protected class that is severe or pervasive. And I'm glad we're talking about this because I think hostile work environment is one of those terms that started as, sort of a unique term of art in the legal landscape. And, mostly for the better has sort of caught fire in terms of becoming part of the popular lexicon. But the problem with that is that now it gets used widely and people sort of think any injustice at work constitutes a hostile work environment and that they have some sort of claim. I think the point of today's conversation was maybe to clear that up a little bit, right? There is sort of a discrete universe of conducts that would actually, give rise to a legal claim, right? You may be subject to a toxic work environment or have a jerk for a boss. That's not the same as a hostile work environment that gives rise to, a legal claim like, we would typically deal with in my office.
So, okay. So by that kind of means that there's not really a hostile work environment lawsuit, for example, right? Like it has to have an underlying, it's a hostile work environment based on someone's protected class is what you're saying. So
generally that's what we see, right? That it's based on there's some differentiator or some protected class membership that a person could claim. I was just talking with a colleague of mine though, like, well, could one white male who's being subjected to harassment by another white male, does that mean that person doesn't have a claim? I mean, I guess he could, there could theoretically be a claim based on, well, your white maleness. You never see those kinds of things. So, right, typically there's some differentiator and some protected class membership that gives rise, that's sort of the basis for, and serves as a springboard for the actual legal claim based on the, again, unwelcome harassment treatment, which is severe or pervasive, right? So you could have an isolated incident, like a single one that was really crazy bad news, right? Or you could have a sort of less severe but frequent in its occurrence, right? That severe or pervasive. It doesn't have to be severe and pervasive. It's an either or that gives rise to that. Either or one or the other would create the legal claim.
Okay, so severe is going to be racial slurs, things like that.
Well, so that's an interesting one. No, I think so. A racial slur, an isolated racial slur, time and again has been held to not be in a one-time actionable, right? I mean, a truly egregious, expletive-laced tirade, maybe a single incident would work, but a passing use of a racial slur as an isolated matter, I think generally is not actionable. It's a problem. It should be reported, but I don't think that one incident would give rise to a potentially viable claim. You would want to show a pattern. You'd need that pervasiveness if that were what we're talking about.
And should be addressed, right? Like, so.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a difference between, do you have a legal claim and is this bad behavior that should be brought to someone's attention? Absolutely. All of these are bad behavior again. But toxic isn't the same as hostile work environment, right?
Well, thinking about that, right? The addressed, which could be a whole nother episode, right? Like, how do you address a complaint? There are many times that I've seen, headlines of big loss of profit when underneath everything, there was a complaint and HR didn't do the right thing. You know, HR, there were no consequences for someone's bad behavior.
Right.
And then it turns into pervasive, because
Right.
if you don't
It
address,
snowballs.
right, if you don't address behaviors, then people think it's okay.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And they just keep doing it. So this is really an interesting topic, and kind of like calls in bullying, right? Because like I'm fond of saying, well, really, you know, bad behavior and making someone's life miserable in the workplace,
Right.
absence of protected status, is really just kind of like bullying, which is no good either. I mean, you
Right.
know, addressing these, and a lot of employers now have anti-bullying policies, right, as well as anti-discrimination, anti-harassment.
Yep.
Because you
Yeah.
know,
And if you imagine a dynamic like a male supervisor and a female subordinate, right? And if there's a bully, you know, there's a bullying, or there's a strict boss, that line just sort of gets blurry, right? And if just because a person's being hard on somebody, you know, even if there is a protected class differentiator between the two, right, that doesn't necessarily mean, okay, this is a hostile work environment. There may be a bullying problem, and if we have an anti-bullying policy, or even if we don't, right, that should probably be brought to someone's attention and potentially addressed. But we don't necessarily have that hostile work environment claim.
right, and kind of like what you brought up earlier, a boss that's, let's say, a jerk, and they treat everybody
Equal opportunity offender. Yeah.
they're throwing papers at everybody. They're just in a mood every single day, and everybody is walking around on eggshells.
Right.
Right.
So goes the rat.
There's nothing really illegal, nothing that rises to
Right.
an illegal treatment of people. But I would say, you know, it certainly doesn't, in the employment environment that we're in right now with a labor shortage, I would make sure that your culture is a place where people want to stay, where they want to come to work.
Right.
You know, it is what it is. So Brad, thank you as always for taking some time to talk with me about these important issues that can really help employers get ahead, right? And prevent profit loss, as well as create a better work environment. It's
You
win-win.
know, litigation in the HR space is a resource suck. There's no getting around it. It's a drain on profits. It's a drain on productivity. I think you're right to always come back to that. It's like, what do we spend on our time on here? Are we fighting these battles, looking in the rearview mirror, or are we implementing best practices to free ourselves up to do the more productive stuff that we all want to be doing?
Yeah, a little bit of prevention goes a long way, I think.
Indeed.
So, all right, until next time.
Good to see you, Sandy.
And if you want to contact either Brad or I, reach out to us on LinkedIn, and I'll put my contact information in the comments. Feel free. I'll get you in touch with Brad.
We'll see you there. Bye.
Happy day.